welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus a little bit of insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is AMC Movie News Editor-in-Chief, John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you live from right here at the Stream.tv here in Hollywood, California. And are you ready for some football? I am.
Also here, AMC Movie News Production Manager, Dennis N.
Me and John were geeking out yesterday because John Delancey, who plays Q from Star Trek: The
Yeah,
Next Generation.
how cool was that? Was in our office.
He was in our Burbank office, and I was like, oh my God, Q is
It's
here.
Q.
And also here, AMC's very own Mary Jetikin.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be back.
With Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson confirming yesterday that he will be playing the villain Black Adam, attention has turned to the rest of the upcoming Shazam movie. Now, Entertainment Weekly has revealed that the film will not be produced by Warner Brothers, but rather by their subsidiary company, New Line Cinema. New Line president Toby Emmerich said the following about the project. "It feels to me like Shazam will have a tone unto itself. It's a DC comic, but it's not a Justice League character, and it's not a Marvel comic. The tone and the feeling of the movie will be different from the other range of comic book movies. It will have a sense of fun and a sense of humor, but the stakes have to be real." John, does all this mean Shazam will not be a part of the larger DC cinematic universe with Batman versus Superman?
It is something I had never even considered until I read those comments. I think it's a very, very strong possibility that Shazam, Black Adam, all that kind of stuff will not be in the DC cinematic universe. And the very fact that it's not being directly produced by Warner Brothers, but rather one of their sub-companies, New Line Cinema, is going to be doing it. The very fact that, we heard about that rumor going around that, the no jokes kind of thing. Yet the New Line president saying Shazam's going to be fun and funny and a lot of energy and blah, blah, blah. And with The Rock, I mean, how can you not? And then saying stuff, he's not a Justice League character, it's not a Marvel character, it's not a It seems to me, look, let's be very clear here. No one has directly said that Shazam, Black Adam are not a part of the Batman, Superman, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, DC, Justice League cinematic universe. Nobody has come out and directly said that. However, these comments seem pretty clear. Shazam's going to be on his own. I don't think he's going to be in that cinematic universe with the rest of them, which then begs the question, if that's the case, if Shazam is not going to be in the DC cinematic universe with those other characters, are they going to have Shazam stay isolated as a lone super being in his own cinematic universe, or will they use that as a secondary cinematic universe to introduce some other DC characters? Maybe we don't see the Flash in the Batman Superman universe, but maybe we do see the Flash in a Shazam universe. I mean, I don't know. It opens up a world of possibilities. But I gotta say, although nobody's directly said that he is not in the DC cinematic universe, if I had to put money on it, I'd say it looks like he's not going to be. Dennis, how do you react to these comments?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's a good move that they are not following the DC's supposed no monkey business type of policy. Because you have The Rock, who is charismatic and he's funny, and you got to play to his strengths. I mean, he's gotten better through the time he started acting, but he's not a full-blown dramatic actor. I liked what he did in Snitch, but he's still not completely there yet. So playing to his strength is good. But as far as being part of the cinematic universe, I think it's a horrible mistake if they don't have him, because it's it's one of those things where you have the fans of DC Comics that are going to be upset if it's not part of the universe, and then you have the casual movie-going audience that's like, well, it's not really part of the DC Cinematic Universe. I don't know if I want to see it or not. And as a fan of Kingdom Come, I want to see Shazam and Superman have a showdown.
But they weren't going to have a Kingdom Come.
No, but just leading up to something like that, that's possible if it's tied into the universe. But if it's not, then all my hopes are gone.
Mary?
I think anything is possible. I think maybe for now they're going to try and build two identities, but they are maybe eventually going to introduce them to each other. I feel like, it's like Guardians of the Galaxy is very clearly its own entity, and the Avengers is its own entity. Maybe there's a little bit more crossover, but I feel like eventually their paths are going to cross because it's what people want. So I don't know. I feel like maybe eventually their paths will cross, just not right now.
I got to tell you, if this is true, and if they are keeping him, and remember, we can't say this enough. This is still speculation. If this is true and Shazam is not going to be part of the DC Cinematic Universe, I applaud it. I think this is a great move because one of my worries about crossovers, and I love Avengers as much or more than anybody else and all that kind of stuff. I like seeing these crossovers, Batman, Superman, all that kind of stuff. I've always said that my one kind of hesitation about all this stuff is that the special becomes less special. You know, suddenly you have a world that now has the son of Krypton. It's amazing. It's something we've never seen before. And now we have 5,000 superheroes running around, and it takes away the specialness of it a bit. And I've always worried about with these conglomerations and these crossovers and these shared universes that the special loses some of its specialness a little bit. And if you can get back to having superhero movies in their own standalone universes where it's just them against the various threats they have to face, I like that, and I never dreamed they would do a separate cinematic universe with Shazam. And if they are, I love it. I love it. I'm really excited about it. But I'm with you in many ways. Does that one part of my, dream get dashed at? I'd love to see Superman fighting Shazam, man. Yes, but I think overall, I think it's a healthier thing to do, but I know a lot of fans are going to disagree with me on that.
Well, I think the whole special thing, it's inevitable. I mean, it happens all the time. If you're going to make these universes with all these characters, I mean, remember, in a TV show Heroes, that's kind of what happened. Like, it was very special the first season, and then everyone started to become super powered.
Everybody has powers.
Exactly. So yeah, it is a danger, but I think it's inevitable.
All right, what's next?
Deadline is reporting that actresses Jessica Chastain and Kristen Wiig are in early talks to join the upcoming Ridley Scott film The Martian starring Matt Damon. The project is described as following Damon's Mark Watney, a NASA astronaut who is stranded alone on Mars after being injured during a dust storm. With his crew believing he is dead and no way of contacting NASA, Watney must figure out how to survive and possibly make it back to Earth. Miri, what would you think about either Chastain or Wiig joining The Martian?
I'm in. Where do I sign? I like both of these actresses a lot. I think out of the two, Jessica Chastain is maybe the more predictable choice for this kind of subject matter or this material. However, Kristen Wiig really excites me because we're seeing her kind of explore other genres. We know that she's comedically extremely talented. She's super, super great with her comedic timing and her ability to be absurd and silly. But she's also shown, even in Bridesmaids, incredible depth. In that film,
when she needs to.
Yeah, and it's a funny movie, but she plays like a really depressing misanthrope. Like you're really glad you're not her when you see that movie. So I think she's kind of exploring new territory. So if she does get connected to this film, I'm really curious to see what role she would play and how it would play out. And Chastain, I'll watch her do anything. I think she's one of the best actresses working today. So
that's why you're one of the best people to have on the show. This is the first time the word misanthrope has ever been used on AMC Movie Talk. Anyway, Dennis.
From what I read, I think it's most likely going to be Jessica Chastain. I'm not against Kristen Wiig. I think she's funny, and I do think she has more depth. But I don't know if I can fully see her in a just straight up drama right now. For some reason, I'm picturing the female MacGruber right now, Kristen.
I was picturing the tiny hands, Lawrence Welk,
But yeah, I think it's a good move, and I'm very interested in this movie. I mean, it does sound kind of like Castaway meets Moon, and you need someone like Matt Damon, a strong actor, to carry this movie, because most of the time it's going to be just them.
Yeah.
This raises, you bring up a great point, which raises an interesting question. I have not read The Martian. We were actually just talking about that. It's like, who in here has read The Martian? I have not read it. You read The Martian, but nobody else in here has. So I'm speaking from a point of complete ignorance here, which is nothing new. So the question that raises in my head when you hear the description of it is like, okay, Chastain, first of all, world class. I will crawl over anything to watch her in anything.
Hear, hear.
Wiig, fascinating choice. But how much are either of these two going to be in this movie? Even if they are cast. I mean, it sounds pretty much, your analogy is perfect. It sounds like, what do you call it, Castaway meets Moon?
Yeah.
That's what it kind of sounds like. It sounds like this is going to be a Matt Damon film. So I'm just really wondering a lot about how big of a role would either of them play. So is it that significant? The biggest thing for me about The Martian, though, is just please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck. I am tired. I've been spending years as a film fan being disappointed with Ridley Scott films. So please let this one be awesome. I'm going to hold out hope. All right, what's next?
There has been a lot of talk about a possible Gremlins reboot. The assumption up to this point is that the original director, Joe Dante, would be involved as either a director or a producer, but in a recent interview, Dante states he's not involved in any way. Dante said the following: "I'm not involved with it. It's something we hear about every 6 months for the past 5 to 10 years. I know there have been many attempts to do it. It's tricky because the rights are jointly owned by Warner Brothers and Steven Spielberg's Amblin, so you've got to jump through 2 hurdles to get your idea approved. I know a lot of very well-known people have come up with ideas for another Gremlins movie, and nothing ever happened. I do know, however, there's a script being written now, and the tricky thing is that I'm not sure that the people making the movie now understand what the original appeal was of the first movie, which was not beloved by the studio until it started making money." Dennis, what word would you use to describe Dante's comments?
He sounds kind of bitter, doesn't he?
Bitter's a good one.
I think he's not happy that he's, one, not involved with the project, and two, he doesn't seem to like the direction that they're going in. And he also, I think he echoed sentiments about the Gremlins sequel as well, that he did work on, that they didn't really care about the movie until it made money, and they just wanted to use the Gremlins name. And I think he thinks that's what they're doing now.
Right.
Mary?
Yeah, I agree. I was kinder, and when I read this, I thought, what word would I choose? And I think it's maybe really skeptical. He's just skeptical about the whole thing. And if you watch Gremlins, I just watched it recently. It was on, and I hadn't seen it in so many years. It's really unique. I mean, it's a comedy, and it's kind of horror if you're young enough for it to be scary. And there's all these incredible effects that are physical effects and practical effects. And it's kind of interesting to think how they would recapture that, because it really is a particularly unique film. And I know you always talk about how you're not precious about remakes or reboots, and it's okay to revisit material. But in this case, I really understand kind of where he's coming from, because how are they going to recapture that? It's such a unique film and so of its time. I get it. I could see why he's kind of questioning. So.
Well, even though he sounds bitter, I'm not saying he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I think the word I'm going to use to describe his comments is concerning. It's concerning as a film fan. I think we don't know the story behind the story, though, right? I mean, is this a situation where, he went to the studio, here's my idea, and the studio said we don't like it, and now he's just, then anything you do sucks? Or is it him, as somebody who loves the creation of his today, might say, I don't think I'm comfortable with the direction they're going? I'm going to go with that one for now and say that these comments are concerning. One of the most interesting things, though, that he points out, this goes back to a discussion we have an awful lot regarding things like why can't Sony and Marvel work together and have Spider-Man and things. He makes a really interesting comment that I think sheds a lot of light on the whole film-going process. He says, look, you got Warner Brothers and Amblin have the rights to this. And he says it's almost impossible getting both of them to give sign-off on an idea. And those are 2 bodies that have shared mutual interest, and it's almost impossible to get it done. So, talking about the whole thing about trying to why doesn't Sony and Marvel work together and have Spider-Man in an Avengers film? Because it would be impossible. Yeah. You would never get a single idea. It would take years to get the first scene approved. But yeah, this is concerning, and it does, to me, recently, it sounded like this was almost a done deal. It really felt for a while, oh yeah, great, it's just inevitable. They're going to be announcing a release date soon. And it sounded like Spielberg was involved. It sounded like he was involved. It sounded like all these original guys were involved, maybe not directing or whatever, but producing, overseeing things. And now it's like that blanket, that carpet's been pulled out from under my feet of, yeah, you were getting your hopes up? Yeah, too bad. And he's not even involved, and he's skeptical, doesn't like it. I cast a big shadow over all of this. All right, folks, we reached that part of the show for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down. And then those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do we got?
As many of you know, Snow White and the Huntsman director Rupert Sanders is developing a live-action movie for Ghost in the Shell, and it seems he may have found his lead. According to The Wrap, DreamWorks is now in talks to bring on the Wolf of Wall Street star Margot Robbie. John, buy or sell the idea of Margot Robbie in Ghost in the Shell?
Actually, big buy. I was incredibly impressed with her in Wolf of Wall Street. And it's one of those things where you see the trailers and the previews and think, okay, she's just the hot blonde and whatever. No, she's real damn good. My one hesitation has been and always will be, I don't know that if fans of the original are going to be happy with it, because even the diehardest of fans of Ghost in the Shell are going to admit this is a real tricky property to just take and translate into a live-action North American audience. It's real tough. So they're going to have to make some changes, some adaptations, change things here and there, maybe significant ones. I don't know. to make it playable, to make it workable on a live-action screen. And I don't know if that's going to endear itself to the originals fans. I don't know if it's going to tick off the original fans. I don't even know if they care if they tick off the original fans, since they are such a small segment. But look, if you're going to do the movie and you need to get a lead, she's a pretty damn good choice in my opinion. For me, it's a buy.
Yeah, I'm going to buy Margot Robbie, but I'm going to sell the remake for the same reasons that you outlined. I was a fan of this movie growing up. I watched Ghost in the Shell. I watched Akira. I watched a lot of these, what they were called Japanime.
95? Is that what
95.
Yeah.
95?
And I just feel like this is a really tricky movie to remake, to your point, and I don't know that Rupert Sanders is the guy, because I wasn't a huge fan of Snow White and the Huntsman. It was visually very beautiful, but the thing I love about Ghost in the Shell is that it's visually beautiful and it drives home some really deep philosophical ideas about society and man, and there's a lot of existential questions that are asked in this film, and I just don't know that Rupert Sanders is the guy. I'm not saying he isn't, and if he is the guy and he does a great job, then I'll be thrilled. But I'm concerned about him as the director for this remake. Margot Robbie is actually, right now, the only thing I'm buying about this package, so we'll see.
But we can't agree that Rupert Sanders probably picked a fantastic next mistress, right?
Oh,
Is that too soon? Is that too soon? I'm sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
I'm going to sell it. I like Margot Robbie, and I liked her in Wolf of Wall Street. I just haven't seen enough of her yet to say, okay, she's going to fit this role. And yeah, it is a smaller audience. I remember I read the manga and I read or watched the original animated film, but I think since then they've had a bunch of other animated series and stuff like that, so I don't know how the story or characters have changed since then, because they always kind of redo stuff. But from the original, I just don't get that vibe from her yet, and I'd like to see her in other stuff before she leads a property like this. And Rupert Sanders, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Snow White and the Huntsman either. I agree, visually it looked great, but I'm still willing to give him another chance to see if maybe he can pull it off with something like this.
All right, what's next?
Legendary actor Al Pacino was recently convinced by his children to go see Guardians of the Galaxy with them. After viewing the film, he was asked what he thought of it and if he would ever consider doing a comic book movie. He said the following: "It was not something I would readily go see, but my kids got me to go, and one has to draw the line where prejudice starts and where it ends. That was good stuff. I recognized the ingenious stuff they were doing, the invention, the attractiveness of the way they're performing it. It had Shakespearean feeling to it at times. I was caught up in the big screen, the great sound. I would do anything that I could understand in terms of how I fit in it. And of course, if I could fit in it, anything's possible." Miri, buy or sell Pacino's comments?
Hooah! I had to say it. I buy this. I buy this 110% for so many reasons. First of all, Al Pacino is a legend. He's one of the greats. To see him in a Marvel movie, obviously, I would see him as in a villain sort of role. I think it would be so exciting. Of course, you read something like this, you start to think, which characters would he play? I love the fact that he was honest, that he came out and said, look, this is not a movie that I would necessarily go and see. I got convinced to go see it. I'm so glad I did. I loved it. It was a great experience. There's such an open-heartedness and an open-mindedness and an intelligence to what he's saying, and the fact that he saw the Shakespearean elements of the story and could still enjoy it, and that he openly said he wants to be a part of this universe, or he'd be, at least open to becoming a part of this universe. I don't know. I think there's nothing bad about this. So I buy it.
I personally think we're looking at the next Shazam. That's just me. I got to buy this too. And the funny thing is, I think these comments by a guy like Al Pacino is a real flagstaff kind of signifying where we are right now. Because 6 years ago, if you told me, hey, you think there's even the remotest possibility that like a guy like a De Niro or an Al Pacino would ever consider being a comic book movie? Hell no. Hell. But how the times have changed. Now now we're in an age where Robert Redford and Sir Anthony Hopkins and all like the best of the best. I mean, we've got Gandhi in a Marvel movie, for heaven's sakes. So, and now we're in an age where it's like, oh, would Al Pacino? Of course he would be in one. I mean, seriously, the only actor right now in the world that I have a hard time picturing would do a comic book movie, and there's only one, and that's probably Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah. But other than that, the comic now realm is so, first of all, the films are good. Yeah. And the actors are recognizing these are not just popular movies, because Pacino doesn't need to worry about popular. but they're good and they're fun. And now you got guys like Al Pacino saying such a significant signal about where we are now with the culture of comic book films. Dennis?
I buy it as well. And to add another name, Glenn Close. You never thought she'd be in the Marvel universe. And you know, you take a look at some of these older actors and you look at their filmography and you notice that most of the stuff, including Pacino's, is all 95, 99% all set in like the real world, you know, because they just didn't grow up with all that fantastical element. I think one movie, Pacino's Devil's Advocate, where it's like kind of supernatural, fantastical. I think De Niro had
Angel Heart. Doesn't he play the? Well, I don't want to give it away.
Oh,
For those who haven't seen it, but
he was in Stardust.
Yep,
But other than that, most of them are real world. So I like that all these guys are now starting to be open to these movies, and I'd love to see him in the Marvel universe.
But you know, Samuel Jackson, and we already said
Yeah.
Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. I mean, we're in an age now where Gal Gadot is in a comic book movie. Like the floodgates are like wide open.
But I also think it's a testament to the fact that it's just good content. I think these are actors that have made good choices, and that's why they have longevity. Obviously, they're super talented and they're great at what they do. They make good choices. That's why they're still working 40 years in, 30 years in. And I think the fact that Al Pacino went to see Guardians and he saw that this was good content. He said, if it's good like this, it's entertaining and it's rich, it's interesting, I want to be a part of it. Less because it's a comic book movie and more because it's an exciting world and it's well done and well executed and the stories are good and the characters are good. So it boils down to just quality, I think.
Yeah, and then, you know, let's be honest here. It's not like he hasn't been in movies that have been worse than Guardians of the Galaxy, you know what I mean?
All right, what's next?
George Clooney has lined up his next directorial effort, which will be titled Hack Attack. Hack Attack is based on true events as depicted in a book of the same name by journalist Nick Davies and his account of the British phone hacking scandal surrounding Rupert Murdoch's news empire. The project is described as follows. Over 6 years, Davies investigated News Corporation and its subsidiary News International. His book shows how their habit of hacking into their voicemail messages of elected officials, celebrities, and even ordinary British citizens and the victims of terror attacks was wide-ranging and ongoing. The resulting scandal would not only mark the end of News of the World after 168 years of continuous publication, but spur a government inquiry that would bring to light some of the most unthinkable of business practices. Dennis, buy or sell Clooney directing Hack Attack?
I buy it despite not caring much for Monuments Men. But Clooney has talent directing as evidenced by Good Night, Good Luck and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind and his other movies. So I think this subject matter is in his wheelhouse, so I think he'll do a good job with it. The only thing I want is them to change the name. I know it's based off the book of the same name, Hack Attack. It sounds like a children's toy or something like that. Hey kids, let's play Hack Attack.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like something a show that would be on G4. Hack Attack, blah, blah. But I gotta enthusiastically buy this. He's a great director. He's an Academy, level director. He's done great jobs. His father was a journalist, and to see and what he did with Good Night, Good Luck was just so good. And to see him bring that type of sensibility, background, passion, and experience, and with what he's had in his own life, into a story like this. I think this is fascinating. For me, it's a huge buy.
Yeah, it's a buy for me as well for all the reasons that you guys have said. Also, I think he never really picks up anything that doesn't have significance or relevance with today's world politically. He's very conscious of the fact that he has the ability to share an idea that's important, to share his voice and to tell people that this is an important issue. So I think he finds creative ways of doing that, and his stuff is always great. So, I mean, you're right, Monuments Men wasn't my favorite, but even that is better than a lot of other films that we see by other people. So I'm in.
All right, folks, we reached that part of the show for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Now, we're also going to save a couple of minutes at the end of the show to take some of your live Twitter questions. So if you're watching us live right now, tweet into us at AMC Movie News, and Ashley will pick a couple of questions out. But for now, let's go to the Mailbag. Ashley, what do we got in there?
Matthew Duncan writes, "Hi, esteemed AMCers. I listen to the show each day and look forward to it as a reward for myself after work. With the surprisingly high box office results for Guardians of the Galaxy, do you see any other remaining films on the 2014 movie schedule as having a legitimate chance of catching it for biggest movie of the year? Thanks and keep up the good work."
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy did become the #1 box office film of the year so far. Remember, we're talking domestically. That's the American box office, which is the most important of all, because that kind of sets a trend for what happens internationally later. Can any other films catch it? It's hit 281 right now. There are two. One definitely will. One has the potential to. The film that has the potential to catch it, I think, is the final Hobbit film. The last Hobbit film made, I believe, $251 million domestically. So, and you got to assume the third installment will probably be the last one, and the second one was better than the first one, and so they're on a good trajectory. You got to assume it's going to make a little bit more money than the previous one, so that one has a chance of beating it. The one that will absolutely blow Guardians of the Galaxy out of the water is the next Hunger Games film. The last Hunger Games film, I mean, that's great. Guardians of the Galaxy, $281 million domestically. That's awesome. Last Hunger Games film, over $400 million domestically. It's not going to be close. So the next Hunger Games will be the #1 box office film of the year. And I believe Hobbit has a chance. But it also depends on how much more legs Guardians of the Galaxy have. Last weekend, it dropped 0.7%. over the previous weekend. Like, it made $17 million on its 4th week, and it made $17 million on its 5th week. It's crazy. So if it keeps legs like this, like if it makes like $13 million the next week and $12 million the next week, then maybe The Hobbit has no shot. But as of right now, I'll say it has a chance.
And just look behind you. Like, there isn't anything coming out that's like, wow, huge blockbuster, because it's sort of that in-between period between award season and the summer blockbuster season. So they might also be #1 again this weekend. So we'll see. Right?
I have a feeling No Good Deed might be.
Oh, maybe.
I have a feeling, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Guardians will crack that 300, but it's not going to crack 400, you know?
Oh, no.
And
no.
It's funny, though. Guardians and TMNT together, they both came out in August. I think it's a record month for the box office because both of those movies came out. Because I think...
Despite the fact that this summer was like the biggest disappointment.
Well, I think July was like the lowest in a long time.
This whole summer from May 2nd to Labor Day is the lowest in, I think, 8 years or maybe even 12 years. It's 8 or 12.
I think
One
it's
of those numbers.
partly because they're stretching out the summer season now. It's like, well, summer really starts in March now.
Yeah, it used to be like June 22nd.
Well, when did Captain America came out in April, didn't it?
Like March or April.
March or April.
Captain America came out in April this year. And last year, Iron Man 3 came out in May. So we talked about this once on the show, how like the summer blockbuster season now next year or in 2 years, it's going to be March with Batman vs. Superman. So we'll see. I don't know.
All right. Well, we said we'd take some of your Twitter questions. We're going to do that right now. So, Ashley, what have you picked out of the Twitter box?
Caleb Danger Spocked writes, when do you think a filmmaker realizes he or she is making a bad film?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That is a really, really great question.
I think sometimes they know before the film is even being made. I think there's such a collaborative effort that you would hope that they believe in the movie they're making all the way through. But sometimes I think if you're talking by filmmaker, you mean director, then a lot of things are out of the director's hands sometimes. You know, a lot of it's up to the producer. Sometimes the producer will say, you can't spend money on this anymore. Sorry, we don't have any more money for an extra camera. We don't have any more money for this actor. You have to do something else. So a lot of it is compromising vision. So there might come a time where a director is too deep in it to step out, you know, and he's or she's got to deal with producers and.
I had lunch with someone who remained nameless, but a friend of mine who's a filmmaker and has made some films that all of you have seen, and who has made a couple of bad ones. And you know who I'm talking about. And you know, it's funny because I think, in talking with him before, you know, you go through this filmmaking process and it's like, you get so sold into the idea of a film that you are making because it's your story and you've got a vision in your head. And I think for a lot of these directors, sometimes it's not until you almost get close to the final cut. When you get close to you know, wrapping the film and saying, that's the final edit, we've locked the film, you then sit back and watch it with some people and go, well, maybe this didn't work out the way I wanted to. But I think if you're a really invested filmmaker, you go through that film thinking, this is pretty good. Maybe actors know. Maybe the cinematographer knows earlier on. Maybe some of the script people know earlier on. But I think for the director, it's a more difficult thing to realize this one didn't work until later in the process. So I don't know, Dennis, as a film school grad, like, how do you see it?
I think a lot of times people have feelings, like directors, actors, and cinematographers. They have the feeling that the movie's not working or they don't think it's good. But I don't think you can really, really tell until you get to the editing process. Then you start putting the scenes together, and you're like, wow, that was...
You see, like, you didn't shoot, there's something you should have shot that you didn't shoot, or you covered a scene wrong, like the cameras were too close or they were too far. You know, like, there's so many moving parts. I'm amazed that movies ever come out good sometimes. Like, there's so many ways it could go wrong.
Yeah, I think in the editing process, though, that's kind of when you really get that okay, this is something great or this is something terrible.
So what do you do when you get to that point?
And that's the thing is, like, it's so far along in the process. That's why people always ask, like, oh, why don't people just stop making bad movies? Well, they don't know they're making bad movie until it's like already said and done. All the money has been spent.
Yeah.
They all have the marketing in place and everything, and it's kind of too late.
To Mary's point, though, I mean, we do say this all the time. I think people underestimate how difficult, how monumentally, astronomically, Olympian of a difficult task it is to make a good film.
Yeah.
There are 5 million things that can go wrong. It is the easiest thing in the world to make a bad film.
And it all falls on the director. And it's not always the director's fault. It's
No, but
often not.
they are the ones in the chair.
Yes.
I will always say they're the ones primary. Okay, let's take 2 more really quick.
All right, Russell Crowe writes, what is your opinion of Bay becoming the second highest grossing director after Spielberg?
It is what it is. I mean, he's made movies that have made tons and tons of money. But as we always say on the show, box office is not a reflection of quality. It's just not. I mean, some of the best films of all time never did great at the box office, and some of the worst films of all time make huge bank. Transformers 4 is a great example of that. So really, I mean, it's interesting. It's not surprising, but it really ultimately it means nothing as far as the quality of a director that he is. So I mean, now you take out the Transformers films. Remember, part of this is just luck that they handed the Transformers franchise to Michael Bay. That's kind of lucky on his part, because you take out the Transformers and then you average out the money that each one of his films make, then you're not anywhere near the amount of money that he gets. But he got handed one of the richest properties you can be handed, and it turned out that way. And I've been a Michael Bay defender. Like, I'm not a Michael Bay hater. I'm not. I've hated the last 3 Transformers movies, but I've also got a number of Michael Bay films I really enjoy. And I even thought the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie worked out okay, even though he was just a producer on that. But nothing really. It's a non-issue to me. Do you guys see it any different?
Yeah, I don't have any emotional connection to it. I mean, I think, like you said, there's a lot of reasons why people go see movies, and quality isn't always necessarily what it is. Sometimes they just want the spectacle. They just want to see machines battling each other, and so be it. I'm happy.
All right, last question of the day.
Rashad H. writes, do you think we might possibly see a Superman/Wonder Woman/Lois Lane love triangle in Batman vs. Superman?
It's certainly possible. I'd be intrigued by it. I mean, in the comics, in several elsewhere, and even now, New 52 and whatever, there are romantic things going on with Superman and Wonder Woman. It makes sense. I mean, Superman is the most powerful being around, and the closest person who could have relate at all to him and what he goes through on a daily basis and his experiences would probably be Wonder Woman. Doesn't hurt that she's hot and he's like the hottest guy in the universe and all that kind of. Sure, why not? It's the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie of the comic book world. Let it go. I don't think they will. There were early rumors that there might be a Wonder Woman Batman romance. I also have a hard time seeing that at this point. Hey, look, it's absolutely possible. I would bet on there being no love interest thing going on between any of those primary 3.
Well, Lois Lane and Superman, I mean, in Man of Steel, they definitely kind of subtly hint that there might in the future, because he comes and rescues her in that ice cave or whatever. You remember that part in Man of Steel? When Superman rescues her. So there is a little bit of an attraction there.
Oh no, they flat out, by the end of the film, they're flat out making out.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, it's not so subtle.
Exactly. It's not so subtle. So I feel like, certainly that might be explored, but I don't know about Wonder Woman. We'll see.
Yeah, with Lois Lane, but I don't know about Wonder Woman.
Like a triangle. I don't know about
I can see it happening. I can see them just to put like a little jealousy in Lois Lane, and maybe just have Wonder Woman flirt with Superman alone.
Well, she is Wonder Woman. I mean, Lois Lane's great and everything, but...
The interesting thing here, we're getting to sweaty nerd territory now, but the interesting thing here too, that as a character study of Wonder Woman, is that like it depends on whose Wonder Woman you're talking about, like which writer's incarnation of Wonder Woman you're talking about. But Wonder Woman comes from a race of people that men are pretty much useless, and the root cause of everything that is wrong in the world.
Yeah, she's an Amazon.
And there is no man who is the equal of Diana. There is no man who is her equal. But now suddenly you come across an individual in Superman who is noble and intelligent and more powerful than she is. That presents there's an interesting story to be told there,
for sure.
right?
I'm in. You just sold me on it. You should be in the pitch room. That was good.
All right, folks, so that'll do it for us for this installment of AMC Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all your theater, showtime, and of course your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our podcast feed so you can listen to us at the gym or on the way to work or at school or whatever. I want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. First of all, our very own Miss Miri Jetikin. Miri, where can people find you online?
Online, you can find me at Miri the Jedi.
And of course, our production manager here at AMC Movie News, Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, on Instagram, dennis.tzng.
And our lovely host today, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you?
Twitter, Instagram, at Ashley Mova. Happy Thursday, guys.
And you can find me on the various social media channels at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. My name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.